Hello.
Oh, and welcome to Getting Juicy.
Welcome to
Hi.
Getting Juicy. Hello.
And there's Margaux. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Not bad, thanks.
Good. Very good. And we're recording right off the bat, just so you know. So just, full transparency and all that jazz.
No problem.
I love your background, though. Look at all the awesome memorabilia and different kind of inspiration in there. That's fantastic.
It's mostly cats.
Cats are fantastic. I love cats. They're so cuddly and furry and sweet and adorable.
Yeah.
I love on your Instagram your new cat T-shirt that you were showing off. It's so cute.
I'm a little bit addicted to that company. Like, I'm wearing one of their shirts right now, but it's got wolves on it.
Oh, love it.
Yeah, they're great because they don't have seams on the side, and there's no tags. So
That is amazing. I
That
love
makes all the difference for sure in terms of sensation and just making sure that there's nothing in the way.
exactly.
Absolutely. So, well, first of all, Hero and I are actually, as you can probably tell, we're in two different cities. So, and I think I might have mentioned that before. So I'm in Vernon. And I like that you know of all these cities because you live in the Lower Mainland.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
As we've talked to guests before, I'm like, in the States, I'm like, well, Vernon, I mean, the interior is kind of like, I don't know, Napa Valley of the States.
Vernon's great, though. There's a few shops there that I really love, and the curry pot restaurant is delicious.
I'm surprised you know about that place. It is delicious.
Yeah, and there's the pink spotted goat, and that lady's super nice.
Yes, that is, yeah, they're awesome as well. That's hilarious.
I just want to go for the name. The pink spotted goat. That sounds incredible.
It is. It's all like local artists that they bring in, and it's a really cool little eclectic shop.
Oh, fun.
Very fantastic. So normally we do like a little kind of introduction to yourself before you hop on, but because you're here already, which I love how prompt and punctual you are.
Yay.
Maybe we can get you to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Margaux Wosk. I am a non-binary they/them person. I am autistic. I'm Jewish. I'm all over the place. Yeah.
Hey, you just blew my mind because I didn't know you were Jewish too.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. My last name's on a few buildings in Vancouver. So.
Yes. Yes, it is. It is for sure. And is that from the ancestry of your family?
Yeah, it's my dad's side's relatives, and my grandfather was the original owner of Save on Meat.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I'm very intertwined with the Jewish pioneers of Vancouver. So
that is really cool.
Yeah, they helped establish quite a few things. I think the Beth Israel Synagogue, and I went to Talmud Torah, which is where Seth Rogen went. My sister went to Point Grey, which is also where Seth Rogen went. And we're just kind of
Yeah, and I grew up in Kerrisdale. I went to kindergarten at Talmud Torah. I went to King David for 1.5 years.
Okay, so I basically grew up in the exact same area.
Oh, amazing. We probably know a lot of the same people then.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, that's so funny. How amazing is that?
Whereas I grew up more Ishi Jew. So it's it was kind of my mom converted before I was born, but still she had a lot of the, I don't know, the more, I guess you just, for lack of a better word, Christian kind of upbringing stuff. So we still did Christmas. We did Christmaka, those kind of things. I never actually had a bat mitzvah until I went to Israel on birthright. And they did did you do birthright?
I didn't. My sisters both did.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Pretty awesome. But anyway, that's so many things in common. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna kick the door open right now, if you don't mind, because I'm so curious. Just reading. First of all, you're so talented, and I love the art that you create. And you are predominantly. Is it mostly enamel pins? Or is it
That's what I've moved into, but I do also I have hundreds of paintings that I've done that are here at my mom's, and so I kind of started doing paintings, and then it kind of evolved into other things.
Awesome. Yeah. So have any of you always been very artsy?
Yeah, I was so creative as a kid that So I didn't get my autism diagnosis until I was an adult. But as a kid, I was picked on and bullied a lot for being different. And the majority of my days at school, when we were supposed to be learning, I was drawing in the margins of my paper. Like, my mind has always been very creatively focused to the point that, like, regular academic studies, I just couldn't. I have attention deficit disorder, but I'm very creative. So it's like I'd rather be doing creative things than learning rigid, structured things that I can't pay attention to.
Right.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it kind of evolved into what it is today. And I'm, like, thankful that, like, okay, like, my life has kind of led me to this.
That's awesome. I feel like Hero, jump in. I feel like you want to.
Well, because I have you and me share some similar neurodiversity in different tracks for sure, not identical, but similarly in terms of always being not very academically minded, but still very intelligent, just my brains work differently. So I myself, art, photography, anything creative was, or even on the other side, English and phys ed, but otherwise, none of the social studies or math or essay writing or paper writing, like it just same for me. So what I'm curious to know about is that what was your first memory of a creative thought? If you can go back to when you thought, what was your first idea to create something?
I don't know if it was necessarily a first memory, but it was always being around my mom, who is incredibly multi-talented. Like, she can do calligraphy in Hebrew and English. She does watercolor. She's done acrylic paintings. She's built things out of wood from scratch. She faux finished our walls. She'd carve watermelons into baskets and stuff like that. So, like, my mom, just being around my mom, I think, would be my first creative memory, because I was always watching her at her light table, working on inscriptions and like doing her calligraphy on like hundreds of envelopes for weddings and bar mitzvahs and stuff like that. So, I mean, my first creative memory is my mom, for sure.
Excuse me. Wow. I love that. Something that maybe we'll hop around a lot just because I just want to get certain questions or thoughts out, but
sure.
I think something you said really kind of piqued my interest, just because, I think just for folks to gain more knowledge on autism. And I love how you say you really preach like autism acceptance rather than awareness. And I love that, that change. Well, sorry, go ahead.
Awareness specifically is not a narrative that autistic people are in charge of. It's a narrative that people who think they know what autistic people want are in charge of. And that's a very Autism Speaks thing. And Autism Speaks is terrible. So, like, I try to distance myself from that, because what I say is you can be aware of so many things, but that doesn't mean you accept them. Like, think of all the negative things in the world that we're aware of. Just because somebody's aware of what autism is, honestly, like, what does that do? Okay, you know what autism is, like, good for that. Like, that doesn't mean that that's going to lead to anything positive, or it's going to lead to people understanding what autism is. So it just really gets under my skin as a term that's used, because, just what it's tied to is generally, I say that the most combative party, I guess, towards autistic people is parents of autistic children. They talk to us like we don't know what we're talking about, even though we're living the experience and we can be the strongest ally for them and their child, but they just discredit us. And I even have gotten into some pretty large arguments with a local bakery here, as well as an organization that essentially, I would say it's an exploitation of disabled people in the way that their structure of their organization is. And even the language that they use is that 90% of consumers, if they see that you're hiring disabled people, are more likely to spend money at your business. Mm-hmm. And they use terminology like that. And apparently the government is tied in with this organization. And there's no information about if they're a profit or non-profit organization on their website. There's absolutely no transparency, and I've been trying for the past couple of weeks to hold them accountable, and they're completely ignoring me. So I've had to write some MLAs lately, and some government figures to figure out what the heck is going on.
Yeah,
wow.
I read your most recent post, so I am fully aware, and
it's wild.
It It is very wild. And you know what that kind of reminds me of too is because Hero and I were talking about LGBTQ plus community and just with pride and how it's a similar, to me, it almost sounds similar to, like, not to discredit what you're saying at all. I'm just finding some similarities to companies that also, you know, put a rainbow, the colors on there, you know, only during certain times of the year. And I think they realize that when they do that, they're showing acceptance. I don't know why I'm putting this in quotations, but acceptance and inclusivity, and therefore they'll get more attention and more money, and, you know, more. It's a sort of a similar wavelength.
Well, that's like I guess maybe it's probably called rainbow washing, because I know there's pink washing for breast cancer awareness.
Yes, exactly.
And so, yeah, it is absolutely, there's actually a great documentary called Pink Ribbons Inc. that really talks about the pink washing movement. So it's essentially the same thing. Like, there are local breweries that around Autism Acceptance Month, they call it Awareness Month, put puzzle pieces, which puzzle pieces are terrible, all over their box. I want to say it was Central City Brewing. They put puzzle pieces on their box. They said, we're raising money, we're donating this. They didn't tell you where it was going. And then when I emailed them, I found out it was going to hyperbaric oxygen treatment for autistic people. Whoa. And they didn't even put that on the box. So they're totally duping people by using a symbol of hate and then doing, from what I'm aware of, is unproven treatment for autistic people.
Oh my. Wow.
So there's so much of that goes on. And the thing is same with that accessible employers who I wrote about, they have this expectation that disabled people are complacent and probably stupid, which obviously I don't think that as a disabled person myself, but the way that they talk about things and the way that they go about things is they don't expect to be challenged because they do not put that intellectual level expectation or even being realistic about it. Like, they don't expect disabled people to challenge them. They think that they're going to talk about us, they're going to do stuff for us, and that they're not going to hear back from anybody. So when they do these campaigns, or like accessible employers, they don't have a single disabled person on their board. So when they talk about us in the ways that they do in any of these organizations, they just really honestly, I don't think, expect that anybody's going to say anything about it.
That's a really good, when you brought that to light about, you know, not having a disabled person on their board, or even like any real connection, or that just kind of blew my mind too, because you just don't, it only makes sense, you know? I mean,
because then I was ranting to my mom in the car, and I was like, you know, this doesn't make sense to me how they're trying to represent us. But the thing is the majority of the time it is really for profit. And as this accessible employers people said, it helps our bottom line. So if you find vulnerable people and you're willing to admit that the reason why you have the structure of your organization or business, because chances are it is a business which is displacing funds, so they're getting government funds from what I can tell, which is putting more money in their pocket, because chances are the hourly wages are being covered by the government, not by the organization. So of course it's going to benefit their profit margin if they're paying less people, like if they're not having their own money come out of their own pocket. So of course they're going to tout things like, you want to be part of this organization, you want to hire disabled people, you want to get in with us on the ground floor. And one of the actually the co-chair, I had a pretty horrible interaction with. I said, please stop using the puzzle pieces. This is a symbol of hate. It's a symbol of eugenics. It has a really sordid history. It's disgusting what it stands for. Can you please stop? Her response was basically like, you have your opinion and I have mine. And after we had that conversation, I was looking up her business on Instagram, and I specifically saw the company that she ordered her boxes from. After I had spoken to her a few weeks later, still with the puzzle pieces on them. Oh. And because she has an autistic child, which is a lot of parents of autistic children do this, they're like, I have an autistic child, you don't know me, you don't know my child, these symbols are fine. And it's like, if you introduce any symbols to any youth, as we've seen in the past, obviously they're going to think it's positive and they're going to use them. Mm-hmm. Like, that's like indoctrination at that point.
Right.
And that's what a lot of these parents do, is they indoctrinate their children into believing that this imagery is positive, and thus doing that and incorporating that with their business they're doing that for all their customers too, and they are reversing all the work that actually autistic people are trying to do. And it's so frustrating to me because the conversation could have gone a completely different way. It could have gone, wow, I didn't know this. You know, I'm going to make some changes and we're going to figure out if there's better imagery or if moving forward, we just don't need that. And even on this business's website, it's all puzzle pieces. And at the bottom, it says, we see the ability, not the disability. And when people discredit disability or talk about it like it's bad, you're negating, you're essentially telling people who get financial assistance or any kind of assistance, well, you're not disabled. Let's see the ability. You don't need those resources.
Yeah.
And she's this woman and this organization, they're basically doing things like that. They say that hiring disabled people is better retention. Well, not every disabled person is going to know if they're being treated badly, and they're not necessarily going to know how to file a complaint. So obviously you're going to have higher retention because you're taking advantage of people who don't know that they're being taken advantage of.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It just blows my mind that people don't see that people want to support organizations like this because they don't see it from the other way.
But what comes from your advocacy and your voice and your amplification of these terms and these conditions means that there will be some form of change. It might not happen overnight, but you're amplifying and bringing the same way that these other forms of activism have come up in the last year and a half. You're doing the same thing for your community. And as someone that is myself neurodiverse or neurodivergent, more with NBLD as opposed to autism, there are some similarities, but they're nowhere close to identical, but they have some common threads. It's really interesting to hear some of the stories you've been experiencing and being autistic as well. What I've also kind of learned a little bit, and although it is a mainstream reference, I think it's an interesting observation. Me and Rachel have both watched Love on the Spectrum, and you know, there are a couple female identifying folks on the show that say that autism in women usually gets missed, or they're not.
It does.
So I'm curious to know from an actual live individual that is not in front of a camera, as far as like a TV production, I'm curious to know, like, can you speak to that a little bit, and what have you noticed in your experience of your own discovery, I guess, and other people in your community?
Sure. So as a child, like I was saying before, I never got my autism diagnosis. I got told you have attention deficit disorder, you've got anxiety, you've got depression, you've got social anxiety, you've got some sensory processing issues, which kind of all fall under the umbrella of autism. Not necessarily, like, obviously every single person's different and the spectrum's not linear. You know, there's no high functioning, there's no low functioning. It's really just differences in the support needs and levels of support needs. And so somebody growing up who always had to be like removed from the class and having like the remedial, like the assistance and being put back in, I didn't know. And there was a long time suspicion because of this online bully actually that I had, who said that she thought I had Asperger's, but she was using the term, she was weaponizing it against me, and Hans Asperger was a Nazi, so Asperger's has actually been absorbed by the autism diagnosis, so they're the same thing, basically. So the more I looked into it, the more I was like, wow, this really sounds like me. So I did an online quiz, and I found a UBC doctor who did assessments for free. He no longer does it, and it's a privilege to get an autism assessment, simply because it's around 2,500 Canadian just for the assessment alone. And I mean, that's not going to guarantee anything, right? Like, you could go to the assessment and find out, hey, I just spent $2,500 and I'm not autistic. So for me, getting that diagnosis and reading more about it and finding other autistic people, I'm like, wow, like, I felt like such an outcast growing up, and now here's people that have really similar experiences to me.
Yeah.
And it just blew my mind. It was like, when I got that diagnosis, it was like this overwhelming sense of relief. It wasn't a bad thing. It was something to be celebrated, because I finally had answers as to why the kids were like, why are you so weird? Why are you so different?
Right.
Well, now I know. Chances are I was having you know, social problems or anxieties or sensory issues that I just wasn't aware of. Like being told, oh, you're such a picky eater as a kid. Well, now as an adult, I understand, okay, I have same foods that I like, but it's the textures and maybe the overwhelming taste. And it wasn't that I was being picky. It was that my brain can only handle so much. And yeah, having sensory processing disorder and having those things that are just like, you know, like paper straws I cannot deal with. Like it is overwhelming for me that I have to bring like the reusable plastic hard straws, like the ones you put into travel cups, with me to like Starbucks and stuff now. So yeah, it's just, you know, it's just been a really interesting journey for me.
That was like 5 years ago, about
something like that. Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So that's like, I wonder, are there people out there who are advocating maybe for, because actually I know one of my girlfriends, her son was diagnosed with autism and he's probably 7 now, but yeah, she had to go through the whole rigmarole and it was like, you know, a few $1,000s and it took like, I don't know how long, and it was, you know, a bit of a nightmare. Are there people out there that are trying to advocate to have free assessments or to have, like, is that a thing? You think that'll happen? I don't know.
There is definitely some people and some movements in terms of, I know, greater resources for, I don't know necessarily for assessments. I believe that they should be more readily accessible. And I think people need to get over the stigma that adults can't be autistic, because that's ridiculous. It's, you know, it's part of who I am and it's not going anywhere. So like, that's frustrating. But there are, like, I find that people are really trying hard to get more funding and more, just more resources. Like, I participate in York University's Autism Mental Health Literacy Project, and they put a piece of my art actually on the cover as well, which is cool. My Love Grows design. And that is so needed. Like, I've gone to mental health wards before seeking assistance, and they told me, well, you're autistic, we can't help you. And so now that this guide exists, this guide provides, I guess, whoever wants to get this guide, information about autism and mental health. And that didn't exist before. So I'm thankful that they got the funding to create that project and to really involve autistic people, because they did. Like, every single chapter, everything was reviewed by the participants in the project. They really involved everybody. Whereas, you know, other things don't involve autistic people at all. They just talk about us.
Right.
So there are things that are trying to be done. I know that some organizations, you know, will speak at different budget meetings and bring things up and challenge, I think, the federal and provincial governments. But obviously more needs to be done and more funding needs to happen. And more funding needs to happen for disabled people in general. Like I was saying when I was having this conversation with my mom, like, how are there organizations that act as the middleman or get disabled people hired for large corporations and profit off of that? Where are the grants for disabled small business owners?
Yes.
Where's that money? If this organization, Accessible Employers, if each of their 25 President's Group members threw in $250 into a grant, they'd have well over $5,000 that they could help people with. But I think the greed, especially for that, is too strong, and people just do not believe that disabled people can run their own businesses. And there's no grants. The only program is, I believe, Community Futures puts it on, and they encourage you to take out a loan. And I think to encourage disabled people to take on any debt is disgusting. Is truly disgusting, because you know that these larger corporations and these organizations are getting government handouts. They're getting money that is not expected to be paid back, because clearly they're going to see the benefits in taxes and whatever else, the economic stimulation, perhaps. But when it comes to individuals, I got most of my funding through arts grants. But who's going to know that if you're making enamel pins and you're doing what I'm doing, that an art grant would even be appropriate for that? Because some people may view that as, well, you're going to get this money to make art, but you can't make money off of your art. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, people don't necessarily equate those things. So I'm trying so hard to figure out a way that we can implement, you know, as a community, as a whole, as Canada, implement some kind of grant for disabled small business owners and mentorship to go along with that. I don't need the programs out there help you get the groundwork done. So they'll help you get things like, you know, your business plan and that, and then they'll help you get a loan. I guess they'll help you figure out how to allocate your funds. I've already done everything flying by the seat of my pants with absolutely no idea really of what I'm doing, and I just do it. That it would be so nice to have more funding. Like, I know other people who are like, I'm disabled and I want to help myself. And think about that. If you can get people who are disabled and they want to look after themselves and they want to make a positive change and maybe bring some light to whatever they're dealing with through their products like I do, there is a benefit to the economy as well. Like, if I become independent enough one day and successful enough one day that I won't need help, that benefits everybody.
Absolutely.
And it just blows my mind that that kind of thing does not exist. Like, I'm not taking out debt. I'm not doing it.
You were opening my eyes to so many things this morning. So happy about it. And I'm hoping other people will take a lot from this conversation as well. You know, there have been so much, especially because of the pandemic, even more, I'll just say more awareness around mental health. Like, that's a huge can of worms. It's not stigmatized really anymore. I mean, everybody's talking about it. Like I said, with the pandemic, do you feel like, it's just a question because I'm not sure myself, but do you feel like autism or those that are disabled, that's fallen through the cracks a bit?
Oh, absolutely. And we always have been, whether it's like even like learning disabilities, I fell through the cracks.
Yeah.
Being autistic, I'm falling through the cracks because the stigma is so strong associated with autism, mental health issues, and that kind of thing, and disabilities. There's so much stigma attached that people get so clouded by the stigma that they're not really seeing the real issues that are happening, the inequalities, the inaccessibility, the exploitation. Like, it all gets swept under the rug. And there's really, like, it just frustrates me because I feel like we're almost used as like a scapegoat for other issues. And I get that there's bigger things going on. Like, I totally get that. And I'm not negating that there's probably more pressing issues. But at the same time, it's like, when are they going to do something? When is the government going to acknowledge this like deficit and this inequality, and like understanding that the monthly income for somebody on disability is not realistic in terms of like the housing prices, and not having enough low income housing either? Like, just stuff like that. It blows my mind that in this day and age, when you have, especially in Vancouver, a housing market that is so inflated that you still don't have enough housing or enough affordability for people that are, you know, close to the poverty line or in a lower income bracket. Like, there's just not enough out there, and it all overlaps, you know, like it all overlaps and it all kind of piles on each other, because you have the issue of like not having enough money. So then how are you supposed to support yourself, and how are you supposed to get out of that? Yes. And then there's the rights. If I ever met a partner and I wanted to move in with them, that I would lose my benefits. So like, I'm in a very weird place that it's like, I have to prioritize really myself and nothing else.
Yeah. But you make a lot of good points, though, especially in terms of prioritizing yourself, because when it comes to people that have learning disabilities or lifestyle disabilities, things that alter their perception, and no one else really knows it unless if they know that you're experiencing it. And even if they know you're experiencing it, that doesn't mean that they know exactly how you're feeling or what you're feeling. It puts a lot of stress on people like ourselves who are navigating a world that is not made for us, that's not functioning for us. And that can be said about many other forms of people, not just with neurodiversity, but just other people who don't fit the cookie cutter mainstream norm of our of our current generation. So what I'm wondering is that what are some things that you have noticed, in addition to what you might have already shared, in your day-to-day life, even like in living in Vancouver, what are some things that you notice that you might do for yourself that maybe the average individual may not do, to just get ready for the day, to navigate through the day, to go to work, for example? Like what are some things that, let's say, for people that really have no awareness or acceptance of what people like you and me and also Rachel go through? What are some things that you might do that are signature to your own self-care and well-being?
Well, in terms of like things that I notice when I go out and like barriers that I notice, fluorescent lighting has to be number one. So many, you know, businesses have it because it's just cheap, right?
Yeah.
But for me, it triggers very negative effects and very negative reactions. And I have very bad light sensitivity or photophobia. And so I can only spend a very, you know, specific amount of time in like retail locations before I feel overwhelmed and I have to get out of there. And people don't necessarily understand, like if I go somewhere like that is brightly lit, but it's like natural lighting, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But if it's like, you know, that, and then like what other things? I find that people, like, especially in Vancouver, which some people are not very nice. You know, we have that whole, oh, Canadians are so nice, but honestly, like, the amount of times I've gone to a store or something and I've been really nice, very respectful, and been treated really badly, or just I get people profile me because, I don't know, purple hair or whatever it is. I sometimes get completely ignored in retail stores or spoken to really horribly. I think people just need to be more compassionate and more patient, because invisible disabilities.
Yes.
I think there's something that people don't understand.
Yes.
Like, you could have somebody that looks like they're a customer that looks like they're really upset or whatever. They could be dealing with really bad social anxiety. Like, you don't know, so you just need to treat everybody nicely, which is like such a foreign concept. It's just, so, you know, I think communication, lighting, trying to think of other things that I find to be specific, like barriers or like challenges. I think that there's also businesses that don't have their like automatic door working, or they, like, I worked at Opus in Langley for a while. And their front automatic door was broken. So wheelchair users couldn't even like get into the store. And then once you got into the store, the aisles were so narrow that you couldn't navigate through them. And then there's also things like overwhelming pungent smells in places where people don't understand, or perfume, people wearing perfume. My roommate gets very severe migraines from perfume, and that's like everywhere. Like, we need more unscented products. We need more fragrance-free products. We need more of that, and we need those kind of things enforced. Like, people, okay, I get you want to wear perfume. I get people want to wear perfume, and that's the thing they want to do. Wear it in your own home if you're like, you know, having reasons to do that. But to expose other people to it, or like the Axe spray, or the Old Spice, or your Gain laundry soap. Like, I've become so hyper aware to it now, and people just don't understand that just because it smells nice for you doesn't mean you're not inflicting like pain upon somebody else.
Well, and also, again, but also when you talk about like neurodiversity or things that are like that trigger your neurons, again, it comes down to science and how we molecularly react to environmental stimulation.
Can I just, for one sec, because I feel like, so with the terminology, with neurodiversity, this is super naive of me, probably. Like, and I just backtrack a little bit. I have like legit generalized anxiety, and I have all that great stuff, health anxiety and blah, blah, blah. But the term neurodiversity to me was never, I never heard of it until not that long ago, but it is a very old term. So I just want to, just for our listeners, because I know we've mentioned that term quite a few times during this chat. Can you just explain exactly what that what that means? Like how is it different from mental health, or how is it different from anxiety, or is it the same? Is it under the same umbrella? Like what is, if you don't
So let me just quickly bring up exactly what it is, because I don't want to, it does encompass autism, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't use it. And my version of it is kind of a, what's the word, interpretation of a symbol that I did not create. So I'm looking at an image here, and it says it's things like dyscalculia. So that's like having, like, for me, I get really anxious and really upset and really stressed out when I have to deal with math, and I'm not good at it, which is part of what dyscalculia is. Dyspraxia, so verbal skills, empathy, intuition, autism, mental health, acquired neurodiversity, Tourette's, ADHD, and dyslexia. That's what this specific image says. This one says with fetal alcohol disorder, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, epilepsy, intellectual disability. So it's kind of a big, you know, it's a broad, I guess, spectrum in terms of what neurodiversity is.
Mm-hmm. And that's true, because it's interesting that in that NBLD, it's not in there, and it's definitely part of it. I mean, it's part of it, but again, I think it's stupid that, you know, the DSM is such a huge documentation that people classify as important, and that it recognizes everything. It doesn't recognize NBLD currently. And that's something that I know that there are a couple organizations in New York, or one, the NBLD organization, simply put, that is working to raise awareness to help get that classified, I guess you could say, so that way people can give you the support, and that it is recognized. That, again, like how autism has become such a, and still will always be, an ongoing process for acceptance and awareness, of course. I find that NBLD might be kind of the next thing, maybe, that people will start to include in that awareness and acceptance. You know, like it's, and I'm not bringing this to a casual light, but there's lots of money for cancer. There's lots of awareness for cancer. People know that, right? But then it turns out, and there's a lot of awareness for HIV, which is going to be ongoing, that we need to have. But what about in continued autism and additional nonverbal neurodiversity, however you want to classify it? You know, that you make some very good points there in the stories you've shared, in terms of the points you've raised that are still maybe some loopholes that people are not really grasping. It makes me wonder how long it'll take for enough people to be aware of what it is that we live with, and Rachel included, and how they truly can support us, because we want to support them. It's not like we're trying to not be a hindrance. It's not like we're trying to take away from what others are doing. We just want to belong and function and feel like we're equal.
Absolutely. And I think the challenging part is that you're right. Like, when are they going to see that it's not just for children? Because all the initiatives that people are fighting for are for youth, to have those resources and to have that assistance. And even all the organizations that are local all have problems. It's like none of them obviously are going to function perfectly, but they all have very specific problems. And again, they function by kind of utilizing, and I say utilizing because they utilize parents of autistic children, and they almost, maybe in a roundabout way, weaponize them against autistic adults. And that's how these organizations for autism specifically function, is this weaponization of parents against autistic adults. Whether or not that's their intention, that is honestly what's going on. Because they're like, you're not my child, and I'm using this organization because they're helping me. But we're like, but do you not see all these problems? They're like, it doesn't matter. Like, my child's getting the help my child needs. So, and maybe their child's not getting the help that they need. But like, that's kind of the way that these organizations function, is they get that funding. And I don't know how well it's allocated, but it's certainly not allocated for adults.
I wonder if there's like a horrible mindset. This is a horrible thing to think, but it's kind of like, oh, well, we got to get them you know, you get the diagnosis. Now they're saying we got to get it young. We got to, like, you know, nip this if we can, and like trial the blah, 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 as they start to grow and as they start to hit puberty and all those kinds of things. So, you know, when they're an adult, it's like, like, you know what, it's too late. It's almost, I don't know if you feel that way. Like, it's a terrible.
No, totally. And they use things like ABA, Advanced Behavioral Analysis, and BI, which is behavioral intervention, I believe. And those are both incredibly abusive.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you're going to tell a parent that, and a parent doesn't have anywhere else to go and is unaware of what else might be out there.
Right.
Then, of course, it's easy to essentially indoctrinate them so that they feel like they're getting what they need. Like, I know my mom trying to get me help as a child without knowing I was autistic, but there was like nothing out there. There was like nothing. She had to spend money on, you know, private stuff that didn't really end up doing anything for me. So it's kind of like, when you run out of ideas for your child, you're gonna grasp at straws. You're gonna do anything for your child because that's your child. Like, I'm a child-free person myself, but in terms of like what my mom experienced, you know, I know how stressful, and I know the kind of things that the hoops that she had to try to jump through, and it was hard. But yeah, a lot of these parents don't know what to do. They only see the resources that are out there. I mean, same with the puzzle piece. People are like, well, this is a great thing. This is a great symbol. And it's like, it's easy to find out if anything is bad, no matter what it is, by adding words like hate or bad or why is this bad to Google. And people just don't think to figure out, like, why is ABA bad? Why don't you just Google that term? Because it's like you're having these professionals tout the positive nature of these therapies.
Right.
You said something that it just lit off a light bulb in my head, because something else that you are very vocal about is what you said. You mentioned the term child-free, right? Yes. And I just have to say, first of all, thank you so much for talking about that and being like, this is me and that's okay, because I'm at the age, and I've aged myself a million times on this show. I'm 38. So I like, is my husband listening? Whatever. We've had these conversations before. But I'm 38, and you know what? Like, I'm just coming to terms with the fact that maybe I really don't want kids, and that's okay. But those that were, I guess, born female, it's innate, and there's this like societal pressure that I'm just so done with, and it still exists. It is so old school, though. Still, I can't believe it. So anyway, I just have to say thank you for like stepping up and being just really I'm kind of an a-hole when it comes to that. I even have pins that I sell that say child free and stickers that say child free, because I literally had enough. Like, a guy yesterday messaged me on I think Plenty of Fish, and he goes, "You want to have kids?" I'm like, dude, it says 3 places on my profile that I'm not interested in that. I said, leave me alone. And he's like, what? I'm like, are you joking? Like, are you making a joke? Are you mocking me? And it happens to me honestly all the time. I run into more people on dating sites that want children than don't. And I'm almost 33, so like I'm in my 30s, and I'm like, do I just have to go get a tubal so that I get left alone? Like, that's honestly what it feels like. I've never had the desire to have children. I have pretty strong views on why, which are very controversial. I don't always get into them. You probably imagine what they are. But like, I feel really strongly about not having kids. I feel like it's really honestly responsible for me. I come from a genetic background where both my parents are kind of from the same tribe. So you can kind of imagine that there's a lot of stuff. Anyways, so we have a lot of genetic issues, especially as Ashkenazi Jews. There's a lot of problems there, and I want to be responsible. I don't want to look after another human. It's hard enough to look after myself.
Thank you.
I want to be able to do whatever the hell I want for the rest of my life, and I don't want to be hindered by anything. And I don't want to also be attached to somebody for the rest of my life if something goes wrong. I don't want that. I'm good. Like, I am good. I can go visit my roommate's cat. I have a couple nephews and a niece. I can go, you know, borrow them if I need to go hang out with a child. Like I'll go take my niece to the movies and we'll have a great time. Like I like a lot of very childlike stuff. So we'll go, the last movie we saw was the second Jumanji sequel, which was quite a while pre-pandemic. Yeah. I cried at a Canadian milk commercial. My niece had a great time laughing at me. Like we had it was excellent.
But it's not only that, it's nobody's business.
No, nobody's business. It's nobody's business. And I always get the guys who want, like I'm pansexual, which is a recent thing for me, but I always get the guys coming at me being like, oh, it says I want kids. And I'm like, dude, your profile says you want kids. I'm sorry, I do not feel comfortable talking to you. And I'll say, our views do not align. If somebody wants kids, their views are totally different on the world than mine.
Yeah. But aren't there certain things on Plenty of Fish that if people message you that you'll get a notification saying your profile doesn't match or this person doesn't want?
Not on POF. So on POF, my profile specifically says does not have children, does not want children. People can ignore that if they want to. That's how that website functions.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I know that. Okay. Fair enough. I know there are some profiles that say, you know, you have to write more in your message to be sent. So I thought that maybe there might be additional things, but
yeah. See, so I have like these, and I have pin versions of them too.
I love that.
Yeah, the pins are basically the same.
Oh, Margaux, I'm gonna need to get one of those from you.
Right? They're really cool. Oh, here we go.
Nice. Team Child Free.
But
no, we see them.
Yeah. I love
that.
That
is great. And
there was none of. Yeah. I find if I can't buy something and I want it, I'll just design it myself.
Well, yeah, and I love that you have again the neurodiversity pins as well. That's definitely something that I definitely want to get. I definitely want to get one of those and support your business.
Thank you. Yeah, those have been really good. They've done great for me. I've sold well over 200 of those, and I had to order more. So
that's fantastic.
That is so awesome. And there were so many other questions in my head. I'm like, what do I want to ask just before we wrap up? But just back to Love on the Spectrum for a sec, because we did briefly speak of that. For shows like that, or for those things that are really becoming infiltrated into the mainstream, what are your thoughts? Like, were you a fan of the show?
I found it to be somewhat entertaining, somewhat cringe. And the thing that I found the most unrealistic about it is, as an autistic person myself, I've never dated another autistic person. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they kind of pigeonholed autistic people with other autistic people, like why wasn't there an autistic person dating a neurotypical person? Right. Why didn't they show that? Because honestly, that's more realistic. Right. And so I felt in a way they were just kind of like, I appreciated the quirks, and I appreciated how the people that they had on there all had really bold personalities. I appreciated the casting. That was great. But it was the approach that the show took to kind of like the production. You know, it looks like they put some of the people into purposely uncomfortable situations. And that made me uncomfortable, because I'm like, I wouldn't want to be put into an uncomfortable situation if I was on a show about dating. And like, I would want to go out with somebody that was, I wouldn't necessarily care if they were autistic or neurotypical, but the fact that they only showed autistic people dating autistic people was just, throw in some neurotypical people in there. See how somebody who is neurotypical reacts or converses with somebody that's autistic.
Yes.
Show the audience that, because
that's real life.
That's real life, and that's something that I think they really honestly sorely missed out on.
Good point.
That is
well said.
Yeah, because I think there was one time where there was a speed dating, and there was, I forget the guy's name, but he was really interested in a couple neurotypical. Oh, it was in the last season.
Yeah, that's right. And I think there was only one though, just one where.
And what's interesting is that in the end, he still didn't end up going on a date with them. He went on a date with, someone else who was autistic. So it's,
So it makes you wonder just how much of that program was really like, I guess, manicured or tailored for the person to have a specific outcome. Because I know the producers have a lot of say with those kind of things.
That's true. You're right.
Are you a reality TV? I think you like some reality TV, right?
I like such trash. Like I watch Teen Mom OG, I watch Teen Mom 2, I watch Little People Big World. I follow the Duggars, and it's kind of like, for me, the Duggars, it's like watching like a trash fire, because it's a complete opposite lifestyle that I would ever want to live for myself. And the way that the girls have to be subservient and are only there to pop out as many babies as possible. And the fact that they're not brought up to think for themselves. They're brought up to be parents. They give these child's dolls as soon as they can. They hand them babies as soon as they can. And I guess I just watch it because it's like, you know, sometimes you have to watch the thing that you really don't like just to be like, okay, I'm so happy in my own life that that's not the life I'm living. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, there was one more, sorry, because we're to talk on that topic.
All good.
One more show, Atypical. So have you seen that?
I haven't watched it, no.
So what's interesting to me about that show, Hero, have you seen it?
Yeah, I actually need to watch the final season, but I've seen it to the end of the third, Yeah,
so I'm watching it right now. What I find interesting is, and maybe this kind of happened more after they casted the first season, but when they cast it, the main character, he in real life is not autistic, but he plays someone who's autistic.
Okay.
Now what I'm noticing is what they've tried to do in like the season just before this one and in this season is that he goes to college, and now his friends or people, they are in real life, they're actors, but they are autistic, which I think is really cool because they're casting people, you know, and I feel like Hollywood is kind of trying to do that more and more. For example, with, you know, people's sexual preference or their genders or whatever it might be, like they're actually trying to cast that character, you know. So I guess like, I don't even know what my question is. It's more just like an observation of kind of like Hollywood's kind of recognizing there's very talented people that might have disabilities, and they can be brought into these, you know, these shows and these storylines that have to do with that lifestyle. And it's kind of cool to see, actually.
Oh, and they need more of that. They need, like, there's very capable disabled actors that they need to provide jobs to. Like, we don't need people that are not disabled pretending to be disabled. And furthermore, if you knew did you hear the whole thing with Sia's movie Music? What happened with that? No. So Sia had a movie, and you know, Sia's muse is Maddie Ziegler from Dance Moms, that young girl who dances in her music videos, I think, like Elastic Heart and all kinds of stuff. And Sia had said, oh, I'm writing a movie for Maddie. It's in the works, whatever. People had forgotten that she made that comment. Sia comes out with this movie Music where Maddie Ziegler is playing as, I think Sia said, a severely autistic person, and it's literally like a caricature of an autistic person that Maddie's playing. Maddie apparently said, I don't want to do this, and cried about it, and Sia was like, it's okay, everything will be fine. Movie got panned, it's one of the worst movies, and she even had apparently visual effects that would have sent somebody into sensory overload in the film.
Oh, what? Oh my God, I didn't hear that.
No, I have no idea.
Freaking bad. So I mean, that's like on the other end of the whole thing of really mocking a disabled person and triggering disabled people. And apparently even in the film they use some kind of restraint where they're laying on her, which is apparently not a good thing to even do, like in real life, you know. Physical restraint. And so yeah, the movie apparently is just disgusting, and Sia got a lot of backlash from the autistic community. Yeah. You might want to Google that at some point.
Yeah. Now, when you say movie, do you mean like a motion picture or a music
video? It was a full motion picture that apparently was supposed to be in theaters. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Kate Hudson played the older sister of Maddie Ziegler.
Oh. Whoa.
It is mind-blowing when you actually look. And the things that she said, she told an autistic person wrote her and said, you know, like, you could have hired autistic people, you could have hired me, I'm an actor. And I think Sia said, well, you must be a pretty bad actor then. Like, she was insulting literally everybody who had something to say to her.
Wow.
So, I mean, you can do it two ways. You can be like really receptive and be like atypical and be like, look, we didn't hire an autistic person to start, but we're going to hire more and we're going to do that and we're going to do the best we can. Yes. And then you have shows like Good Doctor and Sesame Street that are involved with Autism Speaks. So, like...
I forgot about the Good Doctor. Yeah.
Right. I did background on the Good Doctor once.
Really?
Yeah.
Because it's filmed in Vancouver, right?
Yeah, so I do extra work like very seldomly. But
wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Margaux, it's been incredible being able to have you as part of the podcast. And also we know that you followed us quite a while ago. And when we were looking at people that were really in the community and let alone in Vancouver and in a shared lifestyle or way of thinking about life in general, we knew we wanted to have you come on, and we're so happy that you were able to come on and share some of your story with us and also raise some really key points of awareness for the community that would be tuning into this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Couldn't say it better than that. Absolutely. And then maybe next time we'll have to have you back on and we'll have to talk more about our Jewishness and what what that means.
Absolutely. Like, I always am like, should I look up people in my ancestry and see if I'm related to them? Like,
right?
Oh my God, I know. And actually, well, it is something. Okay, well, we won't even get into the conversation about that. I'm gonna stop myself there. Yeah, but no, it's been an absolute pleasure. And the next time I'm in Vancouver, maybe we can even, I don't know, see each other and
go out and get something.
Yeah.
I'd love that. Also, can I plug my website?
Yes, please.
We were gonna ask you. Yes, go.
Okay, good. My blog is www.navigatingjourney.com. My Etsy shop is Retrophiliac, RetroPhiliac.etsy.com. I'm kind of all over the web as well, but if you go to my website, my blog, you can find pretty much everything there.
Love it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
And
thank you.
Our final question, silly question, just to leave it on a lighter note, just because we're the Getting Juicy podcast, and we might change this question at some point. But if you were a juice, and I'm not even going to say a fruit juice, like any juice, what would you be and why?
Probably grape juice, because I'm kind of tart and I like purple.
Amazing. And how perfectly kosher in Manischewitz?
Yes, delicious. Kedim is also delicious as well.
Yes.
Let's not forget.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. We'll have a great-tastic day in Vancouver, and I am in Vancouver as well, so maybe me and you will bump into each other sooner than we might think. Who knows?
I'd love that. That sounds great.
We'll keep in touch.
Thanks, Margaux.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.